I'd like to
Ask me every year, Mr.
Man's
like to take a roll call for the open workshop, September 27th, 2018. It is 5:30. Trustee Alonso.
Present.
Trustee Cruden.
Present.
Trustee Finnerty.
Here.
Trustee Lawande.
Here.
Trustee Munoz.
Here.
Trustee Ryan.
Here.
Trustee Bellato.
Here.
Vice President Wilbeck is absent for the moment, and President Brock.
Here.
Okay, we'll start the meeting. I'll turn it over to the superintendent.
Thank you, Dr. Mader. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
On September 4th, the Cabinet conducted walkthrough observations of Bayonne High School and all 11 elementary schools while welcoming the staff back to work. The next day, when students returned to their buildings, Cabinet members were on hand to assist with the entry process. I'm happy to say that the floors were all shining, bathrooms were clean, teachers decorated their rooms, bulletin boards, and hallways. The corridors were quiet, and students were in class engaged with smiles on their faces. Principals presented at each school and prepared the staff for the 2018-19 school year. I reviewed each school's opening and found that for the most part we had a very smooth beginning. Schools had seamless openings except for a few backups as students are still becoming accustomed to the enhanced security procedures at entry time. Also, student schedules at the high school had minimal issues, which made those days very pleasant. In your packet tonight, you will see two resolutions for your approval. The first is designated the week of October 1st through the 5th as a week for respect. The second is designating the week of October 15th through 19th as School Violence Awareness Week. During these 2 weeks, all of our schools will be participating in grade-appropriate lessons and activities. Mr. Lopez will give you an overview of these activities, plus the new strategies and initiatives the district is using to educate our students about bullying. He will also explain the self-assessment that our school safety climate teams completed. Mr. Lopez?
Thank you, Dr. Walko. October is a very busy and important month for us in schools, as you will see in Resolution C5 tonight. Next week, October 1st to the 5th, is designated as Week of Respect. During the Week of Respect, our schools will emphasize the importance of social and emotional learning and the character education, and will be providing age-appropriate instruction focusing on preventing harassment, intimidation, and bullying. In Resolution C27, October 15th to the 19th will be designated as School Violence Awareness Week. Schools will have a variety of age-appropriate opportunities for student discussion on conflict resolution, issues of student diversity, and tolerance. These 2 weeks highlight these very important issues, but our school safety and climate teams will work every day to send a clear, consistent message through the school year about positive school climate and student behavioral expectations that will help reduce violence and create a safe and supportive learning environment for all. Dr. Degnan just passed out 2 documents. The first is a 3-year trend of HIV cases in our district. You can see that both the amount of incidents that have been investigated and confirmed have decreased each year. Our administrators, guidance counselors, and school safety climate teams have been trained during the past month by David Nash on the new updates to the State Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act, and our district policy and forms have all been updated to reflect. The second form is backup for Resolution C6, which is also on the agenda for tonight, and this is a requirement that our schools must complete each year. The school self-assessment for determining grades under the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act. The highest possible score is a 78, and you can see each school's score that's in front of you. In the spring, the self-assessment scores will be confirmed and published by the state, and I will report the scores at a board meeting, and then we will have 10 school days to post those scores on our district and school websites. Our district HIB coordinator, Renee Bush, has brought the Olveus program into our district this year, which is a bullying prevention program, and I'll keep you updated as we move through the school year with that program. Lastly, our district will celebrate Red Ribbon Week from October 23rd to the 31st, and this year's theme is Life is Your Journey, Travel Drug-Free. So as you see, we are really focusing on the social and emotional learning and character education, and we thank you for all of the support because we would not be able to have these programs without your support. So thank you to the board.
One quick question, Dr.
Yes.
Mr. Kogas, maybe it's just my age showing. Is it October? Is it Fire Prevention Month as well?
We have a fire prevention week as well, yes.
Is it in October?
Yes.
Okay, that's
I'll
great.
give you the exact date and all the programs. They do, each school has to send us the activities. I'll put that in a weekly packet.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. CUSAC Instruction and Program Indicator 8 requires that the chief school administrator reports participation and performance results of annual statewide assessments to the District Board of Education within 60 days of receipt of the finalized information from the Department of Education. Moreover, it is important for us to ensure that we are transparent and held accountable to you, the board, as well as stakeholders regarding the proficiency and growth of students on statewide assessments. We will present analysis that includes subgroups, comparison data, and intervention strategies that correspond to the data. Dr. Degnan will present an analysis of the 2017-2018 assessments, that would be the PARC, the DLM, and Access 2.0 for ELL, information for you this evening. The presentation will then be publicly shared with students, parents, and the community. Before Dr. Degnan presents, I would like to thank the members of the testing department and technology department as well, our administrators and teaching staff, for providing a quality testing environment for all our students, which lasted over a month. Dr. Degnan?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Wanko, and I'd like to recognize, of course, the support we received from central office, and as well, of course, from the Board of Education to help us along with this process. We are entering our fourth year of the PARC 2018 administrations, and as Dr. Wanko said, we have 60 days to get that out to the public and to you, and we have a rather lengthy presentation. However, I will try to highlight the successes and challenges.
You're not going to really favor this book, are you?
What I will do is I will highlight it for you and I'll minimize it, but I'll break it
Yeah,
down.
please.
Yes, absolutely.
Give it the gist, I don't want...
I'm going to give you the good gist, the bad gist, and I will tell you how we're going to address all the issues. All right, so basically, for the stakeholders that you have to know, because we are a Title I federal district and we take IDA federal funds, we have to be accountable. And we are looking at this with respect to statewide accountability under ESSA. In elementary and secondary is academic achievement, which is measured by the PARC. In high school, we look at graduation rates, and of course, we have our Director of English Language Arts and our high school principal here, Mr. Baccarella, and as you can see, we are moving into the 90s. And also, what we have to look at for our indicators is progress, or student growth, or MSGP. And just to give you some numbers, when you look at typical growth for a student, it's a number that falls between 35 and 65, and I'll fill you in a little bit on that later. And there's one additional indicator of success, which is very important, something that we've been stressing since Dr. Wanko's been here, is the idea of chronic absenteeism. As Trustee Cruden talked about, we do have to talk about our subgroups and our ethnicity and programs, but I will highlight the important parts of that. Okay. When we did the NJ Ask, we talked about the New Jersey Assessment of Skills and Knowledge. It was basically a 100 to 300 scale, with 200 being proficient and 250 and above being advanced proficient. With the PARC, we now move into areas called level 1 through 5, which are performance level descriptors, and you see the stars for level 4 and 5. Those are the areas that we want to be in. We want to move our students out of 1 and 2 and move from the 3 to the 4 and 5. A student that is on 4 or 5 is college or career ready. on track to be college ready. And what does that mean? That when a student gets to college, they would probably receive a B on a credit-bearing course. And that's the ultimate goal. That's where we want to be. So 3 approaching with a little nudge, we could get someone over. With 1 or 2, usually we need more intense remediation. Student counts. Just to give a little history going back, we had a grassroots movement that was really against the park. There was the Save Our Schools, and there were many parents that refused to take the park. When we started in 2015, what we did was we had a lot of refusals. We had a lot of false positives, which meant that there were students that actually sat for the test but didn't take it seriously, and it was sort of like a sabotage where they just clicked through the boxes. We also had students that would start a test and they would end midway through the test. So a lot of information was false positive as we started out. But as the state tightened up, and what we see is they making Algebra 1 and English 10 a graduation requirement, students are now taking the test more seriously, and you can see that our students are now participating in the test. And we look at our English language arts. As our population increases, we also see that the students taking the test are increasing. I don't have the participation rates yet. That will come from the federal ESSA accountability, the Title I accountability, but I could tell you it was definitely down. And then again, looking at the mathematics, which is the next side, and a lot of students really did try to avoid 3 years ago the math. The math is a very rigorous park assessment, but I like to see, especially there, you see that plus 530 with the Algebra 2. Algebra 2 is one of the most rigorous tests. When you look at the park started out with almost 26 states. Believe it or not, we're down to 4 states, so not many states are participating in the consortium anymore. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to start off with mathematics. I know that we have stressed mathematics as a board. This would be the first year that we were looking at it. And here's the mathematics snapshot. Very important. When we look at Bayonne High School, grades 9 to 12, we remember that in Algebra 1, we were 13.5 of the students passed the Algebra 1 part. Again, looking at this is a snapshot relative to ourselves. This is not compared to peer groups like schools. This is not compared to district factor groups. And this is not compared to the county because we do not have that data. What we do have is the state, and I'll bring that up in a preceding slide. But what we see with what we've done, we've moved relative to ourselves from 13 to 20.9, which is a significant increase for the Algebra 1 score. It doesn't meet where we need to be in the state, but we could see if you're looking at student growth, they're moving relatives to themselves. I think it's also important to highlight, and this is very, very important, that the students that participated, remember we removed the Algebra 1 0 period, and we moved to a cohort of 75 students. This is wonderful news, that those 75 students that were selected to take the 0 period Algebra 1, all those students fell in the 4 or 5, so 100% there. Taking the algebra out also had a good effect, or a positive effect, that we see that we are increasing our grade 8. So sort of where we were skimming the good students off the grade 8, we put them back in, and the effect was an increase now in the grade 8 park score. So overall as a district in grades 4, 5, 6, 8, we have seen an increase in our mathematics scores. So looking at the trends, grade 3, there was a downward trend relative to ourselves, but I highlighted grades 4, 5, 6, 8, Algebra 1 in the high school are trends that were moving in the right direction. As a district, you're going to say, well, what happened as a district? You have to remember that there was 100 more students that were taken out of the equation because we moved them out of the elementary program, but then we had the added effect of an upward trend in grade 8, and we knew that we were going to see that. So that, with respect to Algebra 2 and geometry, really it wasn't down, it was flat. It was basically the same, but those are two of the more rigorous assessments that you'll find in the United States. Okay. We are still in the red when it comes to our look back at the state. Okay, what we do see is here something that we can look at as the 100% in all schools relative to the Algebra 1, and we see the increase in grade 8 with respect to the state. We're moving in the right direction. We have some plans in place. We can talk about the promotion retention policy. We were definitely looking at a new map series, but we see, even though we're not there with the state yet, what we've done is yesterday we brought in, and you've approved this through the Title IIA, the data teams. Each school has a data team. The principal is the chairperson of the data team. We brought in Dr. Quinn yesterday to begin looking at the data, and what we're requesting now is that these data team members will go back and work with their principals to look at the data. So you can see, school by school, grade by grade, there's a different percentage. Reasons for that, good or bad, could be class size, mobility rates, student subgroups, equity with technology, school climate. It could be a maternity leave for a teacher. It could be a sickness for a teacher. So there are many variables on the plus or minus. Really what we're asking now is our data teams to work with our principals, and what Dr. Wanko and I will do with Mr. Kopaz and the cabinet, we will sit with the principals next week on Thursday and Friday when we're setting our administrator goals, and we will use the data that we received from the math and English language arts to help set their goals for their buildings. Moving through.
Just one question.
Yes, sure.
On that prior
Yeah.
screen, I see all 100s. What does that mean?
That means that everybody, we had a cohort of 75 students that came to the high school in the morning, 0 period, and all those students that were grade 8 received a 4 or 5 on the park assessment.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
that's wonderful news.
That's
that
great.
We
Thank
used
you.
multiple measures to select those students, and those students were successful.
Thank you.
As Carol said, we are required to talk about this, but I'm going to highlight, basically what I did was I go through with and I will recognize Jolene Bercantino and Dr. Elena Desjardins in my office that really run these numbers, and then we look for trends. We look at all students, which includes all programs, LEP, at-risk, special services, and race, gender, socioeconomics, and then we begin to look for trends. We break the trends out district-wide, and then we break the trends out school by school. So we highlight, yeah.
This is just showing us all the children that scored the 4s and the 5s.
Yes, 4s and 5s.
And the information on our 1s, 2s, and 3s, do you have that?
I could give you that,
We
yes,
see
I
that?
can. I
Thank you.
I could give you, when we get to the WIDA, the packet is probably like 10,000 pages of,
No, I want
yeah.
the part.
Yeah,
The
but,
packet.
okay.
Okay.
But I'm just explaining some of this stuff, you have to pick and choose what you want for, yeah. And I can give you everything
Okay.
that you request, not a problem. Okay, so we went grade by grade, looking at the trends for the district. And again, as Trustee Villalobos said, this is the 4s and 5s, because those are college and career ready. Even when you look at Algebra 2, when you look at the Algebra 2, you see, how rigorous it is that some students weren't really successful on that. So then the so what is the, what do we do when we have this data and then, when we analyze it, how do we now address the concerns that we see, especially in the schools with the mathematics? I'll give you a minute to go through. What we have is iExcel. We have an adaptive tool that we purchased for the district that students can use online and at home. We also use it during our 0 periods. The goal is to identify math gaps and outcomes. And adaptive means as students get better on the test, it gets more difficult, and if it gets more difficult, they could drop down a level and they move at their comfort level. A thank you to the curriculum committee and the board as a whole. I have heard some feedback as I went traveling through the schools the other night. At the back-to-school nights, we presented the 5410. I saw a parent who said, my son is going to work hard because, not because he is going to go to summer school, but he doesn't want to wake up early in the morning to come in for the remediation. So that was a good thing to hear. So we have 5410. Our district's assessments will continue to focus on the New Jersey Student Learning Standards. We have our curriculum writers in place. You approve that every year. They work throughout the year. Grade level focus packages were created with PLCs in the math department. We also aligned our math department with our science, so we're not working in silos on the next generation science standards. There are a lot of engineering tasks. I have that the PLCs were created. And of course, the book adoption we were looking at a book adoption. We are continuing to go through different procedures to pick an adoption, and we know that hopefully, with your support, in 2 years, the math will be something that we can definitely address. Okay. English language arts. Okay. This is a wonderful story. In grade 11, students surpassed the 2017 58.8 with 60.4%. This is a significant increase. Not only is this a significant increase relative to the district, this surpasses the state, and I'm going to be able to show you that on the next slide. In the elementary level, with respect to English language arts, grade 4, grade 6, and grade 8, we are also seeing gains for our students in English language arts. So when we look at the English language arts, we are in the green. We have an upward trends in grades 3, 4, 6, 7, 9, 10, and 11. Okay, whereas in the math, which is a lot of critical thinking, a lot of multi-step tasks, we see that we are being very successful across the board in this district in English language arts. So if you just go right here to the high school, this is a wonderful story right here. And I have to laud the director and, of course, the staff. 56 outperforming the state, 57 in grade 10 outperforming the state, and this is unbelievable right here. 60% of the students, English 11, outperforming the state, which was working at 38.1%. And if you look at the schools, you can see grade level by grade level, and again, working with the data teams, that we are being successful in English language arts across the board. Okay, we have to look at our trends, and we will flip through. We highlight where we have strengths and weaknesses. We again work with our Monica Flynn, the Director of ESL Bilingual Education, to help with our LEP. I work with myself and my staff on Title I to help our economically disadvantaged through the ARMS program, and of course, Director Demetri and Steinman on the special services. Okay, there's a grade level slide for each, for program, race, gender, socioeconomic, for each. Okay. So with recommendations with respect to what we need to continue to do to get better and improve upon what we're already doing, is every student in grades 7 to 12 will have an account with the Khan Academy providing individual lessons. We will continue with our News ELA or NEWSLA program, focusing on informational text, which is one of the components of the program. Dr. Wanko had suggested bringing in Lucy Calkins, so this is the second year that we're bringing in the Writers' Workshop for the Teachers College of Columbia University. We've heard about iReady program. iReady program is going to be 3 assessments per year. We've always looked at the testing grade levels from 3 to 8, and then we've looked in the high school, but a lot of times we forget about those students in the formative years, and we cannot forget about them, and you've made a commitment to it with our Foundations program and our iReady. I know there is a question about, is iReady testing students too much? I don't think it's testing them more. I just think it's testing them differently, and it's going to give us the valid and reliable information that we need to make educated decisions for our students. Director Ruane brought in new novels in grades 4, 5, 7, and 8, and I know we're looking for anthologies in high school, constantly revising the curriculum and addressing differentiated instruction in the high school. Okay, so that brings us up to speed. So a nice picture with the English language arts. Science, this is the first year that we moved to grades 5, 8, and 11 for science. The results are not available yet, and it's actually the results will not count for accountability this year either. So I just wanted to put this in the PowerPoint for CUSAC, that we did speak about it. Dynamic learning maps. If you're not sure what dynamic learning maps, to bring you up to speed, we also must test the cognitively impaired students and the multiple handicapped students in our district. 1% of our students do go through the dynamic learning process, and what we do is we test them on, it's a computer-based test. So you will see that the students that are the most needy students are starting to understand a little bit about this, and we are working with our special needs students to begin to help them move through the testing process that is now online. So this is a sample. The WIDA consortium has to do with English language learners, okay? We do the Access 2.0. If we go back to the first slide, we talked a little bit about the fact that students have to be making grade level, they have to move one grade level per year with respect to Access 2.0. This is the amount of material that came out on this is very hard to put together. The best way to do this is we would have to wait for the psychometricians down in Trenton to run the numbers because it does fall on our report card. Just to let everybody know where we are going now, and I know there's been questions, but we've been tracking this. The State Board of Education did table the park. It is still a graduation requirement for 2020 and beyond. We have to continue what we're doing. We have to continue with the refresher course for Algebra 1. We have to continue with an refresher course for English 10. We don't know what the board will do next month. It may be too late. So we will be participating the fall block park for those students that have not been successful. The ultimate goal of the governor and the commissioner is to reduce the amount of instructional time, test time, and also to eliminate English 9, English 11, and Algebra 2 and geometry in the high school. To be continued, I'm sure. What do we do in the district? We continue with our assessment plan. We collect the data through our teams. We analyze it as teams. Our data teams work with our principals. We put an action plan together that we report out to the superintendent. We identify any changes over the years. What could it have been? Change in staff, change in class, mobility, program type, and then we would implement those changes. Just to talk a little bit about what's going on with our ESL and bilingual learners, we are now, thanks to Mr. Kopaz, and we have bilingual Arabic and bilingual Spanish at number 3 school. This is wonderful. So it's departmentalized. We're also providing an additional period of ESL, which is the push-in model. And then in 6 to 8, we have separated according to their WIDA scores. So we have the beginners, intermediate, and advanced. And of course, ultimately, now with our database decisions in special education, we are continuing with our vendors that are coming in and assisting our teachers with differentiated and a co-teaching model, and we're going maybe into the 3rd year with that, I believe. We have Jim Collins up here. Greatness is not a function of circumstance. It turns out largely a matter of choice, and we're continuing to work hard. But I can give you, again, this was a abridged presentation. I'm here to answer any questions, and also I have I'd like to get this on the out to the public. So, okay.
One question, Dr. Damian. With regard to the tutorials in the morning for the students who are going to be taking the test again, are they required to attend the course in the morning? Is it
We have
requirement?
to strongly encourage them to attend.
But if they don't?
It's not a grade. It's not a grade. What we really have to do is we have to provide an opportunity for them to have a course or a refresher course. And again, last year, I think we talked about that, and those students did attend because they knew it was their graduation requirement. So the attendance was pretty, I'd say it was very good for them. Yeah. I would say now, I tell you, we're adding English 10. We are adding English 10 this year because we want to give them the opportunity. We did not offer that last year. In addition, we had the summer park, don't forget. We offered the summer park. So these students can really ideally have 3 opportunities to pass the test before they graduate.
So, Dr. Denton, Trustee Velotta and I were looking at this while you were doing your presentation, and so these are all level 4s and 5s, correct?
4s and 5s.
So, assuming there's more 3, 2s, and 1s than there are 4s and 5s, right?
Of course, yeah.
All right, will we be receiving that data?
I had that PowerPoint, but I
Okay.
reduced it. I said, let's find who's on track.
Can you maybe
Email?
slides?
I can give it to all the trustees.
Okay, great. And so we noticed some drops between grade levels, obviously. And I'm not going to point out, schools, but let's just say you have you have, in grade 4, you have 72.
Right.
Level 4s and 5s, and then grade 5 in the same school, you dropped from 72 to 37.
Right.
Are these issues being addressed with these particular administrators as to find out where the disconnect was?
Absolutely. And remember, with the decentralization plan, we're moving back to the principals. I know myself, Mr. Kopaz, as a principal, there are many reasons why. One could be, when I was at Lincoln School, I'd like to set it up, and I had a 5-year plan. And then what would happen, I would get a phone call, and they say, that veteran teacher that you had in that grade level, well, they retired. And then we would bring in a novice teacher. It might be that. So there are many different, for the gains and for the regress. But again, it would have to go school by school. I could bring in that's a little layer. I could bring in all that data school by school. Just like I did for the district, they're going to have it subgroup, ethnicity, program type in their building. And that was what we did all day yesterday, was to break it down.
All right, so page 34. Would it be unreasonable to ask for some explanations on page 34 as to why there's such drops between grade levels? I'm sure you guys did an investigation. Well, you tried to figure out as to why, right? Is there any kind of data?
Well, I would have to get a lot of that from the principals.
Okay.
I would have to get that from the principals, and
So,
they would
but-
have to give me, and I could tell you, many of the stories could be class size, mobility rates.
Well,
It
I'd
could
like to
be-
see that. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Is it possible I can get that?
Well, when I get their action plans?
Yes.
I will send you their action plans.
Okay, great. But I mean, although
So,
the action
yeah.
plans, but I'd also like to know specifically what happened with this
We
particular.
absolutely do that.
The
I'm gonna write
drop
that-
is, the
Yeah.
drop was significant.
Sure.
Okay.
So when I get their plans, if there's a drop, I'm gonna write this down, I'm gonna send it to you. You wanna know why there's a drop from
Well,
one grade level?
yeah, I just like to know, because you said that there were some, it could be that a veteran teacher was replaced
It
by a
could.
novice teacher. I mean, that could be, or it could be.
Absolutely.
Right, it could be, maybe many students transferred out that year, went to another school. Like, I don't know what the reasons are.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what they are. Is there anything that we can do as a district to address those particular drops?
And we would appreciate that support.
Okay?
Absolutely.
And as a board, what can we do? That's why I'm asking.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great question.
I know we were just talking about the drops, and I see Director Ruane here. I'd like to know, let's focus on some of the good things and why our high school is doing so well in English as opposed to the state. I mean, those numbers are just phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
I know, yeah, I'm sure
They get 2
staffing is
stars.
part of it, but, there has to be some other
That
things.
happened by accident, Mr. Broderick. It was totally by accident.
How'd that do with your retirement?
Hard work. No, hard work between teachers and students. It's really hard work.
Yeah.
Yes, but I think that's a really significant raise.
Oh, listen, absolutely. I mean, I want to say, no, that's not fair. Don't put that. No, I want to say, no, definitely definitely a great job on a lot of this. Don't get me wrong. I just asked those particular questions, why there was a disconnect. And again, not for any
asking
type
the
of
same question.
punitive measure, but just more of what can we do as a board to assist that.
I agree wholeheartedly.
That's why. But I mean, the numbers are encouraging, the numbers are
everything's moving
encouraging.
up.
It's moving up, it's trending up, and that is,
You got to remember, 4 years ago, when it came to the math part,
Right.
we had a very difficult time even getting students to take it. Now, there would always be a sophomore increase,
Right.
because what would happen is, you would figure out the test. You would be
Right.
more comfortable with it. We never had a sophomore jump, because we
Right.
never had a freshman year.
Right,
So
right.
that was part of it, too.
No, no,
So a
I-
lot of this is now falling into
right,
place.
and I think the numbers are trending up, it's
Yeah.
good, and I think it's because of the hard work of the teachers and the students and the administrators, and really the change of climate. I think it's a change in climate of the district overall, that, there's an emphasis on this.
It's not here, but I'm going to tell you what I predict, and I'll bring it. The SGP is 30% of teachers' evaluation in Florida 8. So what they say, it's 35 to 65 is typical growth. So if you fall within 35 to 65, that means that our students are growing relative to their peers. If you look at our teachers' SGPs across the board in math and language arts, we know where we fall? Above average, 50 and 51. So if you say, you can look and say, the students did not reach proficiency, or they may not have gotten to that 4 and 5, but I'm going to tell you, the teachers are taking them, even though they didn't hit that bar, they're moving relative to their peers statewide. And that's a very important thing. Yeah, what's that?
Ones and twos and twos and threes.
Well, but those students that are 1s and 2s are not just going against each other, they're going against their test history of students that are comparable, and so they're doing better than maybe somebody in Westfield, or I want to say in district, an affluent district, okay? So.
Right, it could also be, what I'm not, the trend is from fourth to fifth. Could also be that the change in curriculum might, that's why we just want to know what changed that drops
Yeah.
down.
And we always look at, yeah.
Right, because it could be curriculum that there's a big change.
And I can get,
Yeah, we'll just,
and we'll could,
Aren't you glad I asked him to consolidate it?
you have,
Hello?
Thank you, Dr. Day.
Okay.
Another question?
Director Wayne, like to say something?
Are you speaking about
yes, that's what we're asking, changing curriculum,
You just
changing
have to go up to
testing.
the mic.
Okay,
Thank you.
I can explain this.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. The fifth grade, first of all, from last year to this year in the fifth grade, according to the state went down in their growth by 1% in the fifth grade test. Our scores went down also. What am I going to do about that? I'm going to look at the curriculum, I'm going to look at the test. We did not do well in fifth grade. I agree with you. That is the grade that is most concerning to me. Although we are below some of the state levels, okay, our only competition, I feel, is ourselves. When you look at our growth from last year to this year, our growth per grade in some instances was higher than the growth of the state. So in this district, we are moving forward in ELA. Although some of these are not up to the state, I believe that's okay, because we have made gains from what we did last year in fifth grade, seventh grade. All right, what we did in seventh grade last year and what we did in this year. For your information, the greatest percent was 62.7 statewide for seventh grade. In Bayonne, we had, I believe, 64.7. We were above, and 62 for the park is a pretty significant percent. Certainly, there is room for improvement. However, I agree with you for your being concerned about the fifth grade. And as I said, statewide, they did not do that well. The growth, as I said, from one year to the next was 1 point. And for a lot of these grades and growths, there wasn't significant growth in the state from last year to this year in these tests. Going back a few years, there was more significant growth. This year, that was not the case. Statewide. What's the average SGP? What's the average, do you think, percentage-wise, for an SGP, student growth, from one year to the next? What's the average percentage of growth?
For our teachers,
For a teacher, for a student, yes, yeah, the SGP.
for ELA,
Yes, yeah.
51.
Really?
That's,
That's pretty good.
yeah, very good.
51%?
Our students are doing better than average.
Yeah, but
On the plus side, for
well,
typical growth.
to Mr. Wayne's point and to Trustee Velardo, we are still growing, but the concern is that we're not growing as rapidly in a certain grade, but we're not falling behind either.
No, it's not even growing rapidly in certain grade. It's what, I'm asking what changed. Does the curriculum change? There could be different books, there could be something different. The test could have changed. The test itself could change from fourth to
Well, I
fifth grade,
think that
become more
Mr.
difficult.
Wayne,
And that's what she was saying,
test.
that the difficulty could change, the questioning style could change. Many factors can change for this to change this way. That's what I was just asking, if we knew what changed.
Now, the fifth grade, I would say, as director, that is an issue that I have, okay? We have to look at that. In other grade levels, if you see a drop, sometimes it's a particular class, it's a particular teacher. All right, they're all using the same curriculum. All right, and in answer to your question, yes, we did introduce, this curriculum is in the second year. The curriculum I'm most concerned about moving forward is fifth grade. Now, in the high school, all right, we are doing very, very well in the high school. And why is that? First of all, as children get older, they are used to taking the test. The test isn't new. The test has been around for, what, 5 years?
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing new about the park. However, and also the maturity of students, the age of students. As they get older, they get they're better in taking a test. And also what goes on at the high school as far as the teachers and the students, all right? There's a lot of hard work going on throughout the district. However, I can understand your concerns, but I am very happy overall what we're doing in ELA.
It was just significant, it just stood out.
Fifth grade.
Yeah, fifth grade, yeah, right? It just stood out to all of us, and I was like,
You are
wow, what
correct.
changed? Because then in sixth grade, it goes back up. Because then sixth grade, you look at sixth grade, they're back up again where they were. You know, so like maybe the questioning might have changed a little bit from just the park itself from fourth to fifth, and then in sixth, it stays the same. So this way, you're used to it now. In seventh and eighth, it stays the same, so they're used to it. That's why I was just questioning.
Thank you, Nancy, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Thank you, Dr. Degnan. We're looking forward to streamlining our payroll procedures to have employees of the before and after care utilizing the computerized time clocks upon signing in and out. Mr. Fagu is working closely with Repair and Transportation as well as Community Education to ensure a smooth transition. In addition to the time clocks, the district is continuing to explore online lunch payments for parents, as well as point-of-sale process at the elementary schools to eliminate the process of distributing lunch cards and to have increased accuracy on orders. Additionally, Mr. Fagu has met with the repair department to discuss the lack of sufficient power in school buildings. As you know, our average age is 93 years. Due to this age of the buildings and the electrical panels being full, additional wiring needs to be run whenever power is needed for air conditioners based on students' IEPs or medical documentation. Mr. Fagu?
Thank you, Dr. Wanko. Good evening, everybody. I think it's the first time I'm here not talking Chromebooks and E-rate funding or asking for funding for devices. What we're looking to do with the payroll system or the payroll process is we definitely need to streamline how we're going about with the system in place. Right now, we have time clocks at each location, each school. There's repair yard for bus aides, bus drivers, bus attendants. We are replacing them to more current, up-to-date time clocks that currently they just use a fingerprint, put a pin in, and then that would punch them in and punch them out. With age, the fingerprint sensor is not working as well as it should. I can't punch in, I can't punch out. We have to call in for the bus aides and bus drivers and custodial to get it corrected. The new clocks are going to be installed starting next week. And what's going to happen, it's going to be either a proximity card that I don't have on me, which is our ID, that some of our custodial staff have, but we're also looking to start small and start with our before and after care employees. And that's going to be on a PIN-based system. So each employee is going to get a PIN. They will go to the time clock, they will enter the PIN, but instead of just doing the PIN, it's also going to take a picture of them as they punch in and out, just so we have a strong backup of payroll sheets will still be submitted, but then we could pull that up to make sure that it is accurate and the time is again, more accurate. Once we do the before and after care, then we could look to branch out to other departments. We've been visiting this for a little while, crossing over technology. We are looking to streamline the lunch process as well. I remember as days as a principal with teachers handing out the lunch cards, and especially with the K-1 students getting from the classroom to the lunchroom, the cards miraculously go missing. It takes 15 minutes to hand them out. We want to make sure the information on it is accurate, and we know pizza lunch day is very popular. The sandwich becomes a pizza magically from the classroom to the lunchroom. So what we're looking to do is do a point-of-sale system where the Student IDs that they're going to have shortly will contain a barcode, which will be allowed to be swiped in each cafeteria, like we do at the high school, but at the elementary school, parents could load money onto it, so it's prepaid, everything's ordered beforehand on the portal, and everyone is marked accordingly, free and reduced lunch. So we don't have to worry about cards, we don't have to go back and forth with the cardboard, losing the information. It would all be ID card driven. It is a lengthy process because it's a complete change in what we've been used to, having parents pay online beforehand, as opposed to currently sending in checks, sending in cash, having those envelopes not make it from point A to point B is a big job for everyone involved, making sure they go where they're supposed to. So I'm working with food services and also with our SIS real time to make sure we're getting that together and pretty much replicate what goes on at the high school. We also have electrical issues at most of our buildings. With Chromebooks, and so we talk about it, but I'm not asking to buy them. Having the carts in the rooms, plugging them into the walls, it's a huge surge of electrical power. Obviously, coming back in September, hopefully we've gotten through the warmer time. Air conditioners are a concern. And what we did a survey a couple weeks ago because we have students with IEPs, medical notes, faculty with medical notes that have been cleared by our chief medical examiner that requires an AC in the room. What we're looking to do is make sure, from a district standpoint, if the air conditioner is in the room for a student based on IEP, the air conditioner moves with the student the following year. So it will not stay in the same room. It moves with the students, so we're not purchasing air conditioners every year. The problem we faced this year, we had a student that was in a second grade that moved to a third grade that changes classes. So we had one air conditioner in second grade where the student was all year, went to a third grade that switches 3 different classes. We had an issue. We purchased the air conditioners for those rooms, obviously, but our issue is the electrical. We had to make sure the wiring was rerun. We're running out of the panels, the boxes, electrical boxes, so we have to make sure the back end is done first and we have to plan ahead. So when we get to spring, we can move forward with that pattern. We do have some older air conditioners that are in the room for years, and if they are moved, there's a good chance they're not going to work anymore because they're old. Ironically, some of those ACs have been there for 10 years, 15 years, and they work no problem. You buy a new one nowadays, you get 2 or 3 years out of it. So something changed on that. But we're looking to move forward with that as well, making sure the AC travels with the student. The issue, though, is the power supply in the buildings. There is work that needs to be done prior to that being installed. Yes.
Are these air conditioners like ones that where we plug them in an outlet, or we gotta like hardwire them and?
They're in an outlet. Yep, they're in an outlet. But again, with the buildings being so old, the wiring, we'll plug it in, we'll blow a fuse, and then we have to do the groundwork first before we move forward.
So, question, the concern that I receive from parents, and I know as facilities, that I want you to mention, that electrical upgrades are in the long-term district facilities plan?
Yes.
Right, can you touch on that a little bit? Just basically that by the end of a certain amount of time, how much more capability will be added to each building, over time?
Depends on the building. And
Right.
We meet each Wednesday, facilities, and Mr. Kubert has worked out the 5-year plan on facilities, and part of that is to remove, by a triage method, some of those boxes are so old that they are in a state that you would not want in a school. Others are working very well, but they have no more capacity to take additional voltage.
Right.
So it's requiring us to bring in lines as well as replace existing, what you would call in your home a circuit breaker box.
Right. Okay. But we are addressing it, that's the point.
Absolutely.
And after a
In
certain amount
fact,
of years.
we'll be ahead of it for the spring, so we know where we have to have them.
Right.
But we're not going to have it all done by that time.
Right, absolutely. All right, thank you.
I guess my last thought is, so as of right now, all of these boxes are safe, right? Nothing's like unsafe, and they gotta immediately be picked.
Pastel or
Okay.
safety checks in the city.
Is this?
But
Okay.
anything could happen at any time. Look at with the
Right.
flooding, we had a lot of shorts because of water, so
Yes.
thank you, Mr. Fagu.
Thank you.
The replacement steam pipe project is about 10 days ahead of schedule.
Finally.
The steam pressure test. We did a steam pressure test on Saturday, and there were no leaks. So everything went according to plan, the way we wanted. We have steam pressure now for the high school as well as the ice rink. We are now in the process of insulating the pipes in the vaults. We will then be installing and connecting the zone valve wiring, and our men will be pulling the wire through the conduit for that process. We now project that the project will be completed by October 5th. And as you know, the deadline was the 15th. And it was only through the extreme professional and dedicated work of our shop personnel we were able to make such a substantial gain in time on the project. So I'd like to thank Mr. Kubert and his staff publicly for all their hard work. That being said, are there any questions for me before I turn the program over to Mr. Baccarella?
So we now know that that pipe is the only thing that doesn't have a leak.
Actually, Mr. Roderick is correct. And we now have no need to worry about the $100,000 backup plan for heat in the main building. If we had to, we could get heat there today, even though the zone valves are not connected. So we congratulate them again. The board trustees had asked for Mr. Baccarella to make a presentation regarding the deans and evaluation. He is here this evening to do that. We thank him for his time. Mr. B.
Thank you, Dr. Wanko. And let me first start off by saying we had an extremely smooth opening this year at the high school. We were all very proud, and I want to thank everybody for their support. Then the rains came, but that's just what it was. Okay, I've been asked to address the manner in which the deans, because they're a relatively new group to us, how they are evaluated. Last year, we kind of found ourselves in a hybrid position because they are in the teachers' union, but the document they use to be evaluated really doesn't match up to their job description. Yet, they're not in the administrators' union, so that instrument really didn't match up so well. So what we did was we took the job description and we crafted a separate document that mimics the Marshall that we use on the assistant principals. 4321, effective, highly effective. The rubric mimics it, but it also matches up with the job description of the dean. And in your burgundy packet, if you have it open, on the left side is the job description, and on the right side is the actual evaluation process. And this process is exactly what we do, with the assistant principals. The first document on the right side is the rubric, and we start off the school year with an individual meeting with each dean, and they do a self-assessment. Same thing as the assistant principals. They'll take this document, they'll reflect, and they will basically evaluate themselves. We sit, we discuss it, we move forward. The second document that you see in the packet is the professional development plan. Every person in the complex has to do an individual plan. It will have a school-wide plan, a district-wide plan, and one professional development plan based on their own observation. And that is exactly what the assistant principals do, as well as the principals. So they are responsible for filling this out, and this is due relatively soon. In place of their SGOs is really an administrative goal. The administrative goal is the next document in their packet, and once again, this is exactly what I do. It's exactly what the assistant principals do. And when you look through the template that the state gave us as a guide, you will see that it's extremely rigorous. Multiple measures, rigorous, attainable. We picked 3 major SMART goals, administrative goals a year, and the deans do that as well. And they get a score on that at the end of the year. And again, mimicking exactly the assistant vice principals. And then the final document in the package is the final rubric. Let me backtrack a little bit. We do a midterm gathering where we sit maybe in the end of January, where you're going, how you're doing, and I'll do a write-up on them at the midpoint. And then we finally meet again at the end of the year for the final evaluation. We look at the initial assessment, we look at the growth that has happened all year long, and then I have to do an evaluation on them. We sit face to face, and we discuss it. And at that point, they will end up with a rating, okay? Effective, highly effective, again, same as the assistant principals. So basically, in a nutshell, that is the process where we evaluate the deans. My evaluation time spent with my administrators, a little different than observing a teacher. You got to make an appointment. If it's an announced, you got to go in period 3. If I'm sitting with a VP or a dean working on an HIB case and we're sitting there for an hour, that's an observation. If a parent comes to the front desk irate, I want to meet the VP about a problem, I'll sit on a meeting 40 minutes. That's an observation. So they're under the gun constantly all year long. It's not just, I'm going to see you next Thursday for 40 minutes, because we interact so much. So basically, that's the dean's evaluation. Once again, I know I've said it several times, but it does mimic the assistant principal, and they're held accountable to the same standards.
Principal Macarella, how would you categorize the climate of the high school with the addition of the deans?
I think it has enhanced our discipline. I think we can get to more issues. We had 6 helping me. I have 8 now. It doesn't really take a great deal of, thought to see that. The students now, it's a learning curve. It's the first year that they were there last year. Now they're beginning to recognize the deans as a force in Bayonne High School. Last year they were, well, I'm not really sure who a dean is. Oh, they know who they are now. But they've won a lot of students over. They're not just disciplinarians. They help a student along the whole path. And now what we're seeing is students walking in, Dean, can I have a few minutes of your time? Where that didn't happen in the beginning of the year. So that means there's trust being built, and that's a nice thing to see.
Good. Glad to hear it.
So you're basically comfortable with the idea of deans, and you think there's room for growth?
Oh, yes.
This should be
Yeah, I'll take 4 more deans if you want to grow. No, yes, I'm very comfortable with it. I think everyone really is.
And I guess the working between the vice principal and the dean is an important item.
Absolutely.
They have to get
We
along.
spent a great deal of time of pairing up 2 people. It's like an inclusion team. You know what that is, okay? Great team, weak team. They got to play off each other. Sometimes good cop, bad cop, that kind of thing. But they play off each other.
In your professional opinion, I know this might be a little bit above your pay grade, but in your professional opinion, would the deans be beneficial in a grammar school environment?
I'm pro-dean environment, okay? And I am pro giving a principal assistance, because the job is not what it was X amount of years ago. So yes, I would say a dean in an elementary school, brilliant.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Turn the meeting back to Dr. Maida.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you also.
Hey, trustees, just a bit of housekeeping before I start. There were 2 items on your packet. As we're winding up with the end of the year, it's our committee schedule for the rest of the year, and also there is a sheet for the New Jersey School Board Convention. If you are going, please just take a look at it. You'll see a room confirmation. I believe they're all correct, but just take a look if there's any changes. You'll get a package with your ID and all that. We don't have a board meeting between now and then, but as we get closer and we get everything from New Jersey School Boards, I'll put an individual package for each trustee, and we'll run that over to your homes. Okay? And then by all means, any questions you have, just get in touch with me. I'll start with our agenda. There's about 3 resolutions that you did not receive. Everything else was posted yesterday to the website and also sent home. There is an initial communication on a resignation that came in, Philomena Kanopka, that you didn't see. I hope everybody had a chance to read Mr. D'Angelo's letter.
Yes.
I'm sure there'll be a question tonight. Also, as a commendation, you'll see head coach Pat Longo, 500th win for girls volleyball team. She'll be coming in.
I have a question on that one.
Sure.
Did I miss it? Was there a global email on that?
No.
Okay.
I'll start with curriculum and instruction. That group, and that's going to be moved by trustee Cruden. And then it was going to be seconded by trustee Bellato. I hope you all had a chance to read A1. I know it's usually a course of brevity, but I'd like to read that one tonight into the record. This is something that I received the initial letter over 2 years ago about this gentleman and the fact that he put us in his will. And it's been a long process, which was somewhat finalized last week when Superintendent Blanco and Dr. Degnan met with the executor of the state and their attorney, and then you'll see the rest in the resolution. All the resolutions were covered at the committee meeting. I'd like to point out A10 is being tabled. It's a duplicate resolution, which is going to show up in our personnel resolutions. And then really, that'll bring us toward the very end, 826. You had, so 827. So 827 is a resolution that you did not have a chance to see. It's approving our non-public IDEAB agreement between ourselves and the Educational Services Commission of New Jersey for the school year. Pretty straightforward. It was signed by both myself and the president. If anybody has an individual question for Dr. Degnan on it, I would turn it over to him. But if there are no other questions on curriculum, I know...
Oh, that was tabled.
810, and you'll see 810 is going to be in one of our C resolutions. My fault for not picking it up. And I know Chairperson Cruden did a fine synopsis of the meeting. If anybody has any individual questions for either the doctor or Carol. If not, I'm going to move ahead. We're going to go to B, our Finance, Building, and Grounds resolutions. B2, your final reports. You were sent home the one final report, and your board secretary report is with your package tonight. Also, we sent home was appropriation transfers, B4, which did not change, so the resolution that you had home was correct. The only change that you did not see is all the way, it's B15, and we received a emergency transportation. Newark Transport and F&A Transport, which we're required to do, and you'll see in the paragraph, there's 5 homeless students that we're responsible for. All the other resolutions in B were covered at the finance meeting. If anyone has a particular question on one of those resolutions, we could get that answered. And if I'm not hearing any questions, I will move to section C.
I'll move them.
Well, Trustee Alonso was at the meeting along with President Broderick, so I would ask
I'll move them.
Trustee Alonso to move, and if President Broderick would second. Okay. Moving along to personnel. just like you to know that C2 and C3 are going to be moved to non-consent. I'll give you a chance to take a look at C7. This has been revised. The copy that I sent home to you is changed again. So I'll give you a second to take a look at that.
Which resolution?
C7, our coaches and advisors. It was just updated. Some names I know were removed, and
Where did I see that?
okay, not hearing any questions, and we'll go back to it if you need to. Resolution C4 is our monthly resolution on HIB, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Kopaz.
Thank you, Dr. Mayor. In accordance with the Bayonne Board of Education Policy 5512, during this reporting period, one incident of harassment, intimidation, and bullying has been reported and investigated at Bayonne High School. There was no confirmed evidence of the investigated acts of HIV. Strategies, resources, and remedial measures were implemented. All documentation is being retained by the school anti-bullying specialist.
Okay, resolution C23, 24, 25, 26 will be for inside. You'll see resolution C27 is just, it's School Violence Awareness Week, and that's October 15th to the 19th. With two members of the committee, can I get a motion in a second? Trustee Ryan will move.
I'll second.
And I'll have Vice President Woolbeck second. And like I said, we'll do those other items inside. Just to...
I have a question about C22.
Sure, go ahead.
The C22 is a grant provided by the Bayonne Housing Authority, correct? So are the educators from this program paid for by the grant from the Bayonne Housing Authority?
That's correct, Trustee Moore.
So this is not coming out of local funds per se?
No, the reason why we put it for a resolution in the fall for the school year, which starts in October for them for homework assistance, and then also in the spring for their summer program, is because they use some of our sites. But they are paid out of that grant, not paid out of local funds.
How much is that grant yearly? Does anyone know? Okay.
I'm not sure, but I can find out for you.
Please let me know.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
On our non-consent, like I said, we'll be moving C2 and C3 over. D1 is personnel to additional workshops for parent workshops. There's a conflict on this, and that's why it's being moved. There's an addition, resolution D2. It was brought to the floor by Trustee Alonso. It's being moved by Trustee Alonso and seconded by Trustee Lawande. It's Hispanic Heritage Month, and I think the resolution speaks for itself. It's the month September 15th to October 15th, and I'll read that into the record. That is all I have for outside, so I will take an adjournment.
Can I have one
Sure.
question? With regard to purchase orders, is there a reason why we don't use a local paint provider? Why do we go to Jersey City to buy paint? We have like $32,000 worth of paint that we purchased, and it's with the Jersey City company. I was just wondering why we don't use Bayonne.
I could ask, again, being here for my short time, I could find out. The reason why.
Well, we think that we switched to a local, all the summer work that was done too, that's why it's a more amount right now.
Does it go to bid or something?
It has to be a vendor.
It has to be a vendor. See, I'm not familiar with that. I was just concerned because we have plenty of paint stores in Bayonne, and we're using somebody in Jersey City, and you had that state vendor? Okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to adjourn our open workshop to an executive session for legal, personnel, and legal items at 6:40. Board will return